Welcome to Homeschool Tacklecast, the podcast from the authors of the Homeschool Tackle Box Handbook and Workbooks.
We're here to help you discover your children's unique needs as learners. We'll help you apply this knowledge and stimulate your children's motivation, creativity, curiosity, and learning excellence.
We are Sue Notestein and
Nancy Piercy.
We are veteran teachers with over 6 decades of teaching experience, and we come to you from teacherstacklebox.com/homeschool.
Loading your tackle box with the right tools will ensure homeschool is a rewarding and happy experience for both you and your amazing children.
Hello and welcome. Have you ever wondered how to connect on a deeper emotional level with your children, family, and friends? Well, we would like to suggest that you learn to speak their love language. Today, Nancy and I are going to teach you how to speak this new language so you can enhance your teaching and deepen all your relationships. And when you are done, you can add the love language of each child to their learning profiles for future use.
Dr. Gary Chapman developed the idea that there are basically 5 love languages and that everyone, including kids, have a dominant love language that they use to express love and to experience love. The 5 languages are saying words of affirmation, spending quality time, giving physical touch, doing acts of service, and receiving gifts. So the important thing to know is that everybody has a dominant style, but everyone doesn't use the same one. So the way you experience love may be different than, say, your husband or your child experiences love. And in order for them to understand or to feel the love that you are expressing, you have to use their language, because it doesn't matter how strong love is or how you express it. If you're not talking their love language, it might go unnoticed or at least be minimized. So it's really important that you know your love language and you know your child's and whoever you're talking to, their language, or you simply won't get the results that you want.
A real good example of this is my husband and I have totally different love languages. I am an acts of service person, and he is a physical touch person. So I'll be in the kitchen fixing him a nice dinner so that's my act of service. And he'll come in and want to cuddle and hold me, and I've got a knife in my hand. I'm trying to cut up vegetables, and it's like, oh, this is bugging me. What are you doing? And so you've got to recognize that because you're giving love in a certain way, that's not the way they receive it. They receive it in their love language. And that's what's the crux of this. So in knowing yourself and knowing your child, then you can actually show them the love in their own language.
Right. And you want to love your children effectively, and that means communicating the emotions and supporting your kids in the way that they understand. So speaking in their love language is going to enable you to do that. And like we've been talking about, if your love language is different than your child's, then probably you're trying to express love in your language to them. And you want to make sure that you're talking their language. A lot of research has gone into this, and it's proven that effective communication in a parent-child relationship leads to many positive outcomes for the child and the parent too, and the student. All the way through their educational experiences. Sue, why don't you tell them about that research?
Okay, it's been shown through research that if you have effective parenting, that helps children with school achievements and successful learning. It leads to lower risks of behavior problems and contributes to overall mental health. Okay, so effective parenting, that's what we're trying to help you with, is to become a more effective parent by learning your child's love language. If you are effectively loving a teenager, research shows that it actually leads to better functioning of brain regions associated with cognition and emotions during adolescence. So if you are effectively loving your teenager, you're going to be improving their brain, and that's a great thing. In one study with over 800 participants of university students, it showed that parents using words of affirmation, acts of service, and quality time contributed to students' higher resilience. Now, student resilience is the ability to bounce back from failures and setbacks. And even at your home school, your kids are going to have failures and setbacks. That happens to all of us all the time in our life. If they can bounce back from that and grow through the experience, that is so helpful. And that is what working with them in their own love language can help them to do. So, how do we achieve all these benefits and raise a flourishing child who will become a confident adult? One of the sure ways to become effective in giving unconditional love to your child is to explore in depth the 5 languages of children.
So, and remember, you are their teacher. And communication is the prime skill of being a teacher. So, knowing the love language is going to be seriously important in teaching your children through your homeschool curriculum and everything that you're doing. So, now you may wonder, how do I know my child's love language? Well, there are a few approaches you can use to find out your child's love language based on the model proposed by Gary Chapman, who created this love language idea. First of all, pay attention to how your child gives loves to you or to others. This is a direct indicator of how they also wish to receive affection. Do they, for example, make small gifts for you, or do they cuddle a lot? Listen to what they're doing, and that will give you a real insight into what their love language is. Closely watch your child's responses to affection given by you and other adults or other children. When do they seem the happiest? What makes them instantly comforted when upset? You know that from when they were babies, how to comfort them. You caught on pretty quick what they needed, and that's the beginning of their love language and what they need. And then also, what doesn't work. So just be aware, be a good observer of what's going on. You can also look at what they ask for most, especially when under stress. What do they complain about the most? These comments suggest which love language they speak. But bear in mind that we primarily develop love language in our childhood through interactions with our caregivers. So the best point to start from is in determining the love language and exploring it might be your child's too. So be sure that you understand yours and understand your child's.
Okay, and I'm going to add a little bit to that, but before I do, because it just kind of pops in my head, when we went to the conference, the homeschool conference in Kansas City, and worked with homeschool parents like you folks out there, I was really, really impressed with how in tune they were with their children. Nancy has been saying to you here, closely watch, closely observe, notice this, notice that. And in public schools, I would think sometimes the parents were a little detached, but you guys, from our experience, are already very well tuned into your children. So for you to do this is not going to be very difficult, really. I want to compliment you on the way you are working with your children right now. Now, if you're still unsure about how your child experiences love, and then you might try a couple of more things here. You might want to experiment with ways to show love. For example, if they've done something great, like they cleaned up their room without being asked, and you say, boy, you did a good job. I'll give you, here's two options, and you tell me which one you want. I'll give you a candy bar, or you can go to town with me today to run errands. Well, now you're offering a gift in one hand and you're offering quality time in the other hand. And watch and see which one they choose. And if you do that several times, you'll be able to figure out which love language your kid responds to best. And then finally, have your child take the love language assessment online at www.number5 fivelovelanguages.com. This is where they have a series of tests, and you can find the right one and for your child at the right age level. And they can do the assessment online, and that will tell you what their love language is. And so surely then you will be comfortable in knowing what your child's love language is.
Something just to clarify, you don't write number in on that.
Yeah,
It's a five, a numerical five
that,
is what she's saying.
that's
So
a good way to say it.
yeah, yeah, and again, it'll be on the show notes, so you can look it up there and be sure that you get that information. So we want to go through the five different love languages and explain, what it looks like, how to do it, and maybe some cautionary tales too about this particular love language. So I'm going to start out and talk about words of affirmation. So, children whose primary love language is words of affirmation feel loved when they hear you say such words of affection and appreciation loud and clear. They might also ask you if and how much you love them. And you've seen little kids, and maybe you do that at home. How much do you love me? I love you this much, and that sort of thing. So you might see that happening, that they'll start asking the question. Another indicator that this is your child's primary love language is their use of words to express love for you. As soon as they learn to write, they regularly leave Post-its with "I love you, mommy" on your desk or on your counter or wherever. So, how do you show words of affirmation? How do you show them love through words of affirmation? Well, if you recognize your child in the description above as needing this, then here's a few ideas on how to express and care for them. Say, "I love you" regularly and heartfeltly. Mean what you say. It's not just, something that you say randomly. Praise them often, and this is what's really important, sincerely. Make sure that they know that you're really praising them and that you want to praise them for something specific, like something they did right or something that you observed, rather than just a blanket praise, because that'll be much more meaningful to them. You could help them decorate the room with words of affirmation, things that are important to them that, will inspire them. You can leave notes for them in their lunchbox, notebooks, or other places that they'll see when you're not around. And I'm sure you've heard of people that saved all those notes that their parents put in their lunch boxes, and for some, that was the beginning of the memoir that they wrote. How they felt during that time. So that's important. That's important. And then, sometimes you have a nickname or something that just the two of you use, and that's affirmation too, that you're special to me and we have this special name, that sort of thing. So those are just some ideas. I'm sure you have a lot more ideas on how to do this, but just to know that those words are really important and they're really feeling love when you say that. But there are some things to avoid if your child is, if that's their love language. For instance, they feel verbal scorn very deeply. So you have to be mindful of how you criticize them if they do something wrong. In their case, the saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will break my soul," is as true as it gets. So choose your words very carefully. They're extremely sensitive to how you phrase things. Uh, Use little words and really be cautious that you don't strike out of them with your words, because they will feel that as you not loving them. And that's not what you want to do when you're trying to discipline. You want them to feel loved, but at the same time, you want them to change behavior. So be careful what you say to them, because they are especially sensitive to that.
And I think that all kids, not just words of affirmation, love language kids, but all kids are very, very sensitive to what's said to them. And I have an example of that. Now, I don't know if I was words of affirmation when I was a child and now that I'm a service, but the fact is that I was in class one time and I was really good at math. I loved math and I always did everything really well. And the teacher was up in front and she did the problem on the board and she made a mistake. And I saw it and I thought, Well, she needs to know she has a mistake up there. She can't teach us from that. And so I raised my hand and I said, "You have a mistake in your problem on the board." And she looked at it and she did say, "Yes, you're correct," and she fixed it. And then she looks out and says, "But not all of us can be as smart as Sue Shear is," in a very scornful voice. Well, that really hurt me. And I mean, I sat there just trying not to cry the rest of the class hour. And then right at the end of the hour, I was just sitting at my desk, just trying to hold myself together. And she came around behind me and sneaked up, and the other kids all saw her, and she gave me a kiss on the cheek. And that just I just bounced out of my chair and ran right out the door, and that was it. And it took my parents a long time to convince me that the lady was not really, really that mean and that she really did care. But whew, those few words really hurt.
Well, and you think about how powerful that is that you still remember that so intensely. And I
Mm-hmm.
know when you were telling me that story for the first time, you were holding back the tears
Yeah,
after all this time. So that just tells you those words. And I bet you guys that are listening, you can come up with a time that someone has said something like that when you were a child, and you'll never forget it. So the power of words is you've got to take that into consideration with everybody. It doesn't matter what your love language is. But think of that for a person who feels love through affirmation and that comes across. That's devastating. So it's really important to think about that.
I agree. Now we're going to move on to love language of quality time. And how do your kids receive that? This is the love language which expresses affection when focusing on one another in a shared activity. So, if you're just doing things together and having a good time, maybe just watching movies or going rafting or shopping or anything, that is actually quality time that your child that needs that would love to do. Now, they will know if you do not are not entirely focused on what they are doing or saying. Such a child, for example, will begin to act out for their parents and demand total and undivided attention while they're acting out on it, thinking that they can get your attention. Um, it's very important to give them the attention that they need at the time. We had a gal in one of our groups that was teaching third grade, and she had a little boy that would not do his work and he would not turn it in. He was a distraction in class, and she had tried everything. She tried stickers and candy and different things, and she couldn't get anywhere with him. And she finally put him at the computer and had him do the test for love languages. And lo and behold, his love language was quality time. And she sat him down and she said, "Listen," she said, "if you do your work all week and you turn it in like you should and behave yourself, on Fridays, I will sit with you and we will have lunch together, just the two of us." So what she is offering him is quality time. And that little guy straightened right up and he went ahead and became an asset to the class. So, I mean, it really, really can work. Now, how can you show it to your kids normally? Well, one thing to recognize is it's not as much about what you're doing, but how you do it. Full attention is the key to spending quality time with your kids. You cannot get away with kind of halfway listening to what they have to say and continuing to read your book or watch the television show. You have to really give full attention to your child. When you're talking to your child, stop whatever it is you're doing and make eye contact. Do not just talk out of the side of your mouth and keep doing what you're doing. Set aside a one-on-one time for the two of you at least once during the day. Now, she did it just once a week, and that really helped. But you having them every day in your classroom, you can do it at least once during the day, whether it's talking or playing games, but it's a one-on-one time between you and that child that holds quality time as its love language. Share activities, sign up for a hobby or a course together. You could spend time in yoga or exercise or just run errands together. Just things you can do together. Now, of course, there are things to avoid. One of the harshest punishments for children who prefer this way of receiving love is exclusion from family activities. For them, time out is not merely a prohibition to do something. They read it as a denial of love. Now, a lot of parents use time out, and it seems to work in a lot of ways. But the fact is, if you take a child who has a love language of quality time and you move them away from the family and away from you, that is, they read that as you don't love me. And that is really, really sad because, of course, you do. So you have to come up with other ways to discipline your child if quality time is their primary love language and you want to spend time together. But little kids, even really little ones, notice if you're not really being attentive to them. Now I have a friend that was a first grade teacher. I know she was a really good teacher, but she was behind the gun, and these tests had to be graded and into the principal at a certain time. So she told the kids, "Take out your books and you read quietly." And she sat up at her desk and was grading. Well, some little guy comes walking up with a folded up piece of paper and lays it on her desk. And she said, "I wonder what this is." She opens it up and it says, "I hate you." And she thought, uh-oh. So she called him back up and said, "Why did you write me this note?" And he says, "Well, you're supposed to be our teacher, and you're not teaching us, and you're not even paying any attention to us. And how are we supposed to learn anything if you're not going to teach it?" And this is just a little guy. And so she put away her things and went ahead and taught the rest of the day and had to take problems from the principal, I guess, for being late with her tests. But yeah, little ones, even the little ones will know.
I think you have to be careful when you're paying, you're setting aside your book or your computer or your phone or whatever, that you don't slam it down like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, here we go. Because then you're showing them they're interfering, and that's not love. And I
Hmm.
know that's hard because we're people, we're human, and we probably get interrupted a million times a day. But you just have to remember how important it is, and what's needed at that time. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is physical touch. So, when physical touch is your child's love language, they need your closeness to feel loved. As a baby and toddler, they always took comfort in your arms and wanted to be held all the time. They may want to sleep in your bed and sit close to you whenever possible. I think sometimes the child that needs physical touch, you'll find them coming in and connecting with you. I mean, even if they're playing with other kids, they may come and lean against you or something. It's almost like they're filling their battery again. They need that love, to go back out and do what they're doing. So it's just, that's another observation. If you have a child like that you may think that touch is truly important for them to function, to feel loved, to feel connected. So, how can you show it? Any form of touch means love to children who prefer this over other love languages, as long as it's good touch, of course. Here are a few ideas on how to do it. You can play physical games with them. That is touching. You can give hugs and kisses and touches as often as possible, which I imagine you do anyway. You can snuggle on the couch and read or watch a movie. You can comfort them with caresses or hugs when distressed, and then hug and kiss them goodnight. Don't forget to do that. That's important. And then you can do activities with them, that would be a physical touch. Maybe I think a lot of times people wrestle with their children or tickle with their children or do stuff like that. That's physical touch. Maybe you share a manicure or a pedicure, or you have an outing where you do something like that. So anything that's touch oriented and closeness with the person will fulfill that love need. But now there's, of course, things to avoid. Physical punishment, which I wouldn't recommend, but physical punishment would be devastating to a child whose love language is physical touch. And so you have to be very aware of how you use certain teaching tools. In particular, avoid denying your kid any form of physical touch. If you say, "Oh, I'm not going to hug you. You've been horrible today. Why would I give you a hug?" Well, for some kids, that might be okay. I understand, But for another kid, if that's their love language, it's like, "Oh my, you don't love me anymore." And then you have a huge problem if that's what they're feeling like. So don't deny touch or any physical closeness, even though you need to maybe discipline them. Uh, so an idea that you can do when they're upset, you can sit close with them and you can hold their hand if you want, but they'll feel loved, but you can talk it through on what was done wrong and how to improve the situation. And you can discipline them. You can take something away or do something other than that physical closeness. Don't take that away. That would not be good.
Okay, we're ready to move on, and we're going to do acts of service. And so, how do they receive it? Well, your child's life is as comfortable as possible if they're an act of service kid. For such children, it's all about togetherness. You share the load. That is why they will also express appreciation by offering to help you out with your chores and errands. And remember, we all know that sometimes it takes you longer to do your chores if your child is helping, but at the same time, that is a real good sign that they are an active service kid, and also that you would know their love language. Depending on their age, they might sweep the floor, put the dishes in the dishwasher, offer to run to the store, walk the dog, any of those kind of things. And that is a real positive thing. How can you show them that you love them? Through acts of service. Okay, here's a few ideas. Help them learn a new skill with your positive guidance, such as riding a bike or playing an instrument. Maybe help them with their homework when they need it and promote successful learning. Do not say in a minute when they ask you to help them with something. If they come to you and they need help, you need to stop what you're doing, make eye contact, understand what they're asking for, and go and help them if you can. And you have to do it with a joyful attitude, not grumpy. You know, sometimes that's a pretty big thing to ask, but we want to try. And if your kids are having a hectic week and things are kind of panicky for them, you can help them out with tidying their room or doing their chores or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But what do you want to avoid? You don't want to go overboard with acts of service. More precisely, make it your imperative to find the right balance between assisting your child and teaching them to be self sufficient. Because as much as you want to pamper them, remember, the greatest service you can do is to help them stand on their feet as quickly and firmly as possible. It can be very tricky not to become a butler for your kid. And I can see that happening so easily. But you have to balance it. You have to balance the acts of service that you do for your child along with making sure that they are becoming self sufficient. So it's pretty fine art you need to master if your child's love language is acts of service.
You do have to be careful because people who anticipate everybody's needs and taking care of people all the time because that's their love language, they tend to give themselves away after a while, And I think it's frustrating to people if you're anticipating everybody's needs all the time, but they also take advantage. Oh, they'll do it. They'll do it. And so, that you've got to teach your child what's good and what isn't, even though, that's their love language. So just cautionary tale, I guess. Be careful. And with you too, if you're that person where acts of service is your love language, you can work yourself to death and nobody else is experiencing that as love. They're just saying, cool, they'll do all the work. So it's comes with traps. You have to be careful with that. All right, the last love language that we're going to talk about is receiving gifts. So this love language can be misunderstood. Individuals who prefer it appreciate presence and experience love through tangible symbols of affection. Most importantly, however, this language of love revolves around consideration and knowing the gift giver. That's so important. It's not just something random that you pick up and, oh, it's a gift opportunity. Here you go. It's got to be meaningful. It's got to, really, really, the person who receives it has to know that there was a lot of thought that went into it, and that you knew what they wanted and what they needed, and then it's truly appreciated that you've taken an interest in them and their preferences. So, and if you do that, I think if you look at the things that you cherish and that you've kept, it was because it was from a very special person who you knew loved you and chose that for you, and that it was important. That's what you keep. You don't keep the thing that they grab at the uh, register just because they have to give you something for some reason. So here's some ideas on how to show this. Give presents as rewards for achievements or on special occasions. So just keep in mind that if your child has achieved something or there's a special occasion, the love language is gift giving. So that's a good time to do something that's meaningful and appropriate, and they'll really receive that as your love. Buy them inexpensive knickknack for no reason to tell them you were thinking of them. That's just if you go to the store and they're not with you and you see something that you know that they love, and it just something small. It can just be the candy bar they like, or something like that. They will interpret that as love, that you gave them. Bring souvenirs from travels, which is okay, but again, don't just grab something, because you have to. If a child has these special gifts and that's their love language, they're going to want to keep them and display them. So, providing a shelf for their special things would be another way to gift them with something that they would really appreciate. If they do something cool, maybe the newspaper, is highlighting their team effort or something like that, then take that article or whatever, or certificate or picture or whatever it is, and frame it and give that as a gift, because that's got lots of positives to it. And then you could just bring something random, like if you're on a walk or something and you see an interesting rock and it makes you think of them, you could give that to them and explain why you picked that up and why you brought it to them. And just in the explanation alone, even though the rock may not be very special, the information would be, and they would receive that as love. But you can imagine giving gifts has some pitfalls. You don't want to encourage materialism. That's the more you have, the more you are. If you don't have anything, then you are nothing. You have to be really careful, that that's not what you're enforcing. So again, make everything special and meaningful, and not just something to fill the gap. And find things that will fill the bill, that will show the love. I think sometimes, especially absent parents, they buy a lot of stuff or do a lot of stuff to fill in that time that they didn't spend with their child. And even if your child has that situation and gifts is the sign of love, it might work a little while, but that's pretty thin in showing love, if just because all the other things you've not done, and suddenly you're giving big gifts for, what's the reason? It's like you're buying their love. So all of these things are important. You have to remember the important dates. Don't forget a birthday. Don't forget something like that, because that would be devastating to them. But again, I think the real message here is it has to be meaningful in order for it to show love if you're giving a gift.
Okay, one of the overlying things we want you to take home with you is to recognize that even though your child has a dominant love language and that you can figure out what that is, that doesn't mean that they don't need all the ways that you know how to show your love for them. In other words, if they are a service, acts of service kid, it's not always doing acts of service for them that lets them know you love them. If you bring them a gift, it also lets them know. It just isn't quite as meaningful. But you need to use all the different love languages with all of your children. And that because they'll see all those ways in life, and they need to be prepared and know what all of it means and to understand. So even though your child has their favorite love language, it means that they still need all the ways that you know how to show them love. And now that you understand and can speak your child's love language, and you can tune in to how they express and receive love, you can create deeper connections and help them feel truly valued. When you add their love language to all the data you have collected in their learning profiles, whether it's through words, time, gifts, touch, or service, adapting your approach to what resonates with them can make all the difference in the world. Remember, it's about those little everyday moments that show you care that makes you a great parent and a great teacher.
Thank you for listening to our Homeschool Tacklecast today. We invite you to join us next time as we cast our line into new and innovative strategies to help you keep your children engaged and excited about learning.
We suggest you go to our website, teacherstacklebox.com/homeschool, and explore what we have to offer in the Homeschool Tacklebox Handbook and also in the teen and elementary workbooks for your children.
Feel free to email us through the contact page on our website. We promise to respond to your questions, comments, and concerns in a timely manner.
Until another day, bait your hook, cast your line, and let's go fishing.